Romeo was hanging out in the PJ Masks bathroom. And he said, "Those pesky PJ Masks are always foiling my evil plans. But this time, I'm gonna get revenge on them." And then he heard somebody approaching the bathroom. So he snuck away to his secret hiding spot. And then Catboy entered the bathroom. And Catboy said, "Man, I really have to go pee right now. Good thing I made it here in time. It felt like I was gonna pee my pants." So Catboy went up to the toilet and began to take a really big pee. Then Romeo quietly snuck out of his hiding spot and said, "With my new toilet disruptor gun, I'm gonna cause so much trouble for the PJ Masks." And without Catboy even noticing, Romeo shot him with his new gun, and then he crept back to his hiding spot. After he got shot, Catboy began to lose his balance, and it felt like the room was shaking. "What's going on?" said Catboy. "My aim is off and I'm peeing everywhere. I feel terrible and the room won't stop moving." So Catboy quickly left the bathroom. And then Romeo came out of his hiding spot and said, "Look at this giant mess that Catboy made. He's gonna get in so much trouble. My evil plan is working really well." And then he heard another person coming to the bathroom. So Romeo went back to his hiding spot. And then Gekko came into the bathroom. And then he said, "Who left this giant mess in the bathroom? It's really gross in here. I'd better clean up the toilet before I begin to use it." And while Gekko was distracted by the mess, Romeo snuck out of his hiding spot and shot Gekko with his toilet disruptor gun. And then he quietly went back to his hiding spot. And then Gekko began to feel a little bit strange, like he had to use the toilet right away. So he jumped onto the toilet and began to take a poo. But he felt terrible and the room seemed like it was shaking. And without properly finishing, Gekko ran out of the bathroom. Then Romeo came out of his hiding spot and said, "Look at this giant mess. Gekko was even worse than Catboy. My evil plan is working so well." And then he heard yet another person coming to the bathroom. So Romeo once again went back to his hiding spot. And this time, it was Owlette who came into the bathroom. And she said, "What happened in here? Why is there pee and poo everywhere? Something doesn't seem right." So Owlette used her super eyesight to scan the bathroom. And that's when she saw somebody hiding behind the toilet. "Romeo, are you hiding back there?" said Owlette. "Come out and explain this mess." So Romeo left his hiding spot and said, "Look at this giant mess that Catboy and Gekko made after I shot them with my gun. And guess what? You're gonna be next, Owlette." So Romeo began to shoot his gun, but Owlette used her super fast reflexes to dodge out of the way. And then she used her wings to blast Romeo with a powerful wind. And Romeo began to lose the grip on his gun. And then he dropped it on the ground. And when he went to pick it up, Catboy showed up. And he picked up Romeo's gun. And Catboy said, "Romeo, so you're the one causing all this trouble. Well, I'm gonna give you a taste of your own medicine." "Don't shoot me with that gun," said Romeo. "It's really powerful." But Catboy shot him anyway. It was the only way that Romeo would learn his lesson. And then Romeo said, I feel terrible. Oh no, it feels like I'm gonna..." And then Romeo had instant diarrhea. After Romeo was done, Gekko brought in some cleaning supplies and said, "Romeo, you created this mess with your evil gun, so you're gonna be the one who has to clean it up." With no chance to escape, Romeo began to clean up the awful mess that he created, with the PJ Masks making sure he did a good job. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to see more PJ Masks, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the very next episode. George was in the garden when Catboy from PJ Masks showed up. And he said, "George, I heard you have an emergency, so I got here as quick as I could." And George replied, "Yeah, I gotta go poo really badly." "Oh," said Catboy, "then why don't you just go into your house and use the bathroom?" "Well," said George, "every time I try to walk, it feels like I'm gonna poo my pants. So I'm stuck out here and I can't make it to the toilet." "Oh, I see," said Catboy. "Well, maybe I can call one of my friends to help you." And a short time later, Gekko showed up. And Gekko said, "George, I hear you have a really big potty problem. Well, maybe I can help you." "Yeah," said George. "I've been holding in my poo for so long, it feels like I'm gonna poo my pants. I can't even walk to the toilet right now." "Okay, George, just try to hold on a little longer, okay? If you can't make it to the toilet, maybe I can bring the toilet to you." And then Gekko went inside the house. Gekko entered the bathroom, and when he saw the toilet, he thought, "This thing looks pretty heavy. I'll have to use my super strength to lift it up and bring it back to George." Gekko quickly got the toilet and pushed it back to George, who was still waiting in the garden. "All right, George," said Gekko, "here's the toilet you wanted. I hope you haven't pooped your pants yet." Then he got onto the toilet, and Catboy said, "All right, George, it's time to take your giant poo." George started to poo, but a lot of farts came out because he had been holding it in for so long. The more he pooed, the more George farted, until he was surrounded by a thick and stinky fart cloud. "This fart cloud," said George. "I can barely breathe, and I can't even see what's going on." Then Catboy said, "Hold on, George, I think one of my other friends can help you." And a short time later, Owlette showed up, and Catboy said, "Thanks for coming, Owlette. George has a really stinky fart cloud that's giving him problems." "Yeah," said Owlette. "We should try getting rid of this fart cloud so George can finish taking his poo. And maybe I can use my super strength wings." So Owlette flapped her wings to blow away the fart cloud. And after a while, George could see again. "Thanks, Owlette," said George. "But I have another problem. I don't have any toilet paper." "I can take care of that," said Catboy. "Just hold on for a sec, George. I'll be right back." Then Catboy left the house. Catboy ran into the bathroom, and he said, "All right, I need to get George a whole bunch of toilet paper." So he went to the toilet roll and began to collect a really long piece of toilet paper. And then he quickly returned to the garden. "Here you go, George," said Catboy. "This is the biggest piece I could carry at super speed." So George took the toilet paper and began to wipe his bum. After he was done, they all took a look at the toilet. And Catboy said, "Wow, George, that's a lot of poo. I guess you really had to go." Then Gekko and Owlette said, "Use the toilet when you feel like you have to, and don't hold it in for so long. This way you'll avoid having emergencies." So George gave the toilet a big flush. And then he thanked the PJ Masks for coming to his rescue. So what do you guys think? Do you want to see more PJ Masks episodes? Let me know in the comments below, and keep watching Lemon Pie Land. Peppa was hungry, so she came to the kitchen looking for a snack. And that's when she saw a slice of cherry pie on the countertop. The pie slice looked a little bit old, and it even smelt kind of funny. But Peppa was getting really hungry, so she decided to eat it anyways. After she was done, Peppa felt a little bit strange. And pretty soon, her stomach started making all kinds of weird sounds. Then Peppa thought, maybe I'll feel better if I lay down for a while. So she left to her bedroom. In her bedroom, Peppa felt even worse, and she thought, maybe I should go straight to the bathroom. But pretty soon, Peppa was lying in bed, too sick to move. The room felt like it was shaking, and Peppa thought, I really have to use the toilet right now. And that's when Peppa had diarrhea. Afterwards, Peppa realized that she had taken a poop on her bedroom floor. And she thought, Mummy's gonna be so upset at me. I hope she doesn't find out. And just then, somebody entered the bedroom. It was George. And when he saw the poop on the bedroom floor, he asked, what happened? And Peppa replied, I had diarrhea after eating a snack. I don't feel too good. And George said, well, we'd better clean up this mess before Mummy finds out. And Peppa replied, George, you gotta help me. I'm too sick right now to leave the bed. So George left the bedroom and went to the kitchen to look for some cleaning supplies. I need something that can hold all the diarrhea. And that's when he found the empty bucket sitting on the countertop. With this bucket, George thought, I can scoop up all of Peppa's diarrhea, so Mummy won't find out. And then he went back to the bedroom. But when George returned, Peppa was having diarrhea again. And George said, oh no, there's twice as much diarrhea now. It's not gonna fit into my bucket. And then Peppa said, can you get a bigger bucket or something? I'm too sick to leave the bed. You gotta help me, George. Then George went searching for a bigger bucket. So George ended up in the laundry room, and he thought, there's gotta be something in here bigger than that bucket. And that's when he saw the laundry basket. Maybe this laundry basket is big enough to hold all of Peppa's diarrhea, George thought. So he took it back to the bedroom. But when George returned to the bedroom, Peppa was having even more diarrhea. Oh no, said George. There's so much diarrhea now. I don't even think this laundry basket can hold it all. Then can you find something that's even bigger than that laundry basket? I'm still too sick to leave the bed, said Peppa. Bigger than this basket? Said George. Okay, I'll try to find something. So while Peppa laid sick in her bed, George went to search the house. George ended up in the living room, and he thought, I'm not gonna find anything bigger than that laundry basket, so I gotta think differently about this. And that's when he found the vacuum cleaner. So he took it back to Peppa's bedroom. But when he returned, Peppa was still having diarrhea, and now the pile was super high. Oh no, this isn't gonna work, said George. There's just too much poop on the floor. So what are we gonna do, George? Said Peppa. We can't just leave this giant pile of diarrhea here. Mummy's gonna be so upset. So George brought back the laundry basket, gave it to Peppa and said, all right, put this on top of the poo. And then he said, I need you to stand on top of the basket to make the poo smaller. So Peppa climbed on top of the basket, and the poo started to flatten out. Eventually, the poo got squished really flat. And so, they removed the laundry basket, and the pile was small enough to vacuum up. After a while, everything was back to normal, and the floor was clean. So George asked Peppa, what did you eat that made you so sick? And Peppa said, I had a slice of cherry pie, and then my stomach started to ache. What? You mean that cherry pie that was left out on the countertop? Said George. I ate 3 slices of it. And pretty soon, George was the one having diarrhea.
So it was a good thing that Peppa was around to return the favor.